Welcome to episode 3 of Uncharted, Your Sidekick for Life, the podcast where we explore the transformative power of mentorship in shaping tomorrow's leaders. Dan Dillard, Dr. Leon Vanstone, and myself, Natalie Peyton, are super excited for this episode because our special guest today is a powerhouse in the PR and marketing world. Joining us is Heather Wagner Reed, the founder and CEO of Juice Consulting. Heather's firm is described as Austin's premier marketing and PR firm. Juice Consulting specializes in music, film, tech, international government, and more. She's worked with iconic artists like Gloria Gaynor, Erykah Badu, and Queen Bee herself. Heather has also worked alongside innovative tech accelerators such as Techstars and Mass Challenge. Before starting Juice, Heather did day-to-day management and global marketing coordination for Beyoncé herself. Heather has extensive international experience in the music industry. Heather's passion for mentorship is evident in her role as adjunct professor at Austin Community College, where she inspires students in marketing and PR for creatives. Our Gen Z contributors who were interviewed by Anais and myself include a revisit from A&M freshman Kiara, who shares her desires to give back by making a positive impact in her community. Trevor, who shares his personal insights on navigating relationships while in college, and a few students from the University of Texas, including Matthew, who discusses his expectations about needing to reskill after graduating, as well as Samarth, who talks about the possibility of AI forcing engineer students like himself to be prepared for retraining come graduation. Thank you so much to all who participated. Let's jump in.
I'm excited for this episode.
Me too.
Number 3.
Me 3.
I'm also especially excited because my friend Heather's on here.
Yay!
It's nice to see you, Heather.
Nice to see you.
So before we get rolling, why don't we go through and just kind of chat about who we are and what we're doing?
Hey everybody, I'm Natalie. I'm an actor, comedian, and podcast personality. Person Natalie. really messed that one up.
I'm Dr. Leon Vanstone. I'm a rocket scientist, storyteller, and an entrepreneur. And I'm co-founder of Founding Up.
Yes. My name's Heather Wagner Reed. Thank you so much for having me on.
Sure.
I'm CEO and founder of Juice Consulting, which is a PR and marketing company here in Austin, Texas. We've been here 17 years, have been in business. It seems like no time at all, but it's flown by.
Yeah.
And we specialize a lot in the music and entertainment, tech and innovation, film world, arts, theater. And we also do a lot in the nonprofit sector. We work with pretty much anything that's cool and cutting edge coming out of Austin. And we have a lot of fun with what we do. And I'm also an adjunct professor at Austin Community College. I teach marketing and PR for creatives in the audio technology and industry path. And any kind of student could take the class, actually. So we have a lot of non-music industry students as well. And I've been doing that for 5 years.
And now you know why we wanted her on the show. Just lots and lots of
Exactly.
experience, lots of as mentorship opportunities with all the people that you're helping with, and so all the things that you've seen throughout your career in teaching. So as you know, the basis of the show is just mentorship. We want to be sidekick for Gen Z, as we know they're facing a lot of different things that maybe we have not faced in the various generations before, but we want to just let them know that we are here to support and we're here to help. So
That's great.
in this format, we've had Anais go out and ask some Gen Z some of these questions that what's keeping them up at night, what is troubling them, and so we'll just watch these and kind of see where we go with this.
Sounds good.
So what is most important for you in life, when you think about the things that you want to bring in your life and keep them?
One, I always say my dream is just to help the world positively. I'm not sure how I'm going to get to that dream, but I just know I value the everyday life. I value a better experience for a lot of people. I don't know if this is just because of how I grew up, where I knew my parents is from, or where my high school was. I came from a little bit more of a financial, more needed school. And so I don't know if it's just because of the experiences around and the people that I met, but I do know that I do want to impact people's lives more beneficially. And then I think this also goes back to the type of person I am. I don't think I want to do something just to do it. If I'm going to do something, I want to have an impact in someone positively. And so I think I just know that something in life that I want to give back to the people that I'm around that I've never met or just random strangers across the world. I just know that I want to give back some way and then help positively somewhere around the world that someone's going to be like, this was a good idea.
Mhm. That's a good thing. That's a really good thing. I mean, what I've learned so far about life, it's not really about money or financial stability or anything that's say superficial. It's about who you want to be in this life and who you want around and how you want to impact others and take care of yourself. And that's if you do that in your
I
life,
totally agree.
yeah, if you do that in your life, then you're going to end up helping someone for sure.
The things I'm picking up here is giving back, positivity, and impact. So Kira, an A&M student, is kind of, I think, first year A&M student, is just kind of trying to figure out her identity and doesn't know where she starts, doesn't know even how to approach this, but she does know this about herself. So anyway, thoughts?
I think it's so powerful to know that at that age. I knew the same thing at that age, that I wanted to give back, but and over the years I've been able to sort of hone that into, I believe that my purpose is to heal through humor, because humor is always something that helped me get through things. So the fact that she knows she wants to give back positively is super, super powerful.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
This strikes me a lot because it really resonates as well. I feel like I've been so lucky throughout my career, and I've had a lot of people reach out their hand to me through moments of my life and really pull me along to the next level through mentorship and other means. And the more and more I've had growth in my career and success, I feel the more I want to give back as well. And that comes in different forms. It comes in the form of helping others, younger people, people that are involved in my company or my students, but also the community at large. There's such a need out there for help and resources. And because of the type of business that I'm in, we're very connected. We have a lot of, resources at our fingertips constantly. So it gives me great joy to put those resources with those in need. And I feel like the more we can do to do that in this community, the better we feel about who we are as an agency. And I sleep at night and I feel good waking up the next day.
Well, I think you hit on something. The word community is big because I think Miss Snowburn, one of the other videos that she has, we may be able to get to it, but she talks about mentorship and how she is not sure she can ask certain questions because at a certain age, we kind of have this assumption that I'm bothering somebody by asking them for help. And I noticed that in her video, she was talking about where her background was from this financially challenged school. So she's seen needs. She's seen, what the needs are through her own experience. And now she's like, I don't know how I'm going to help, but I want to help. And I think that part of in my experience is I have experienced the community at large here in Austin, through the media and all the things that all the people we've talked to, and it is this natural. Humans do want to help. They want to give back because we're all on the same planet, rotating and kind of. We're not going anywhere else. So it's how do we help the next generation? How do we help whoever we can? It kind of is fulfilling to us as well. So I noticed that by what you said, and I also the word community. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing that in my experience of teaching Gen Z, being around Gen Z, they know what they're about. They're a generation that understands their own values, I think, better than any other generation ever has. And I think that's one of the upsides of social media. I mean, it's a mixed bag, but they really do. They know what they care about. They know what they want to do. They're not just there because they don't want to just do things because they can. They're not so much about money and financial gain. They want to see their community help. They want to help people. They're seeing needs in the world and they're thinking, I want to attack that. And the hardest part I think, of being 18 is knowing how you will change the world.
Mm.
Because most people that change the world had no idea,
Right.
right? Had no idea.
That's right.
Like if we could all see from 1,000 miles away that ChatGPT was going to be what it was, I would have bought shares.
Same.
Right? Like, come on, that's easily
Mhm.
done. And so I think that's the thing with changing the world is you maybe you can set out on that journey to do it, but you never know that you will.
Mm.
And that's the difficulty. And to some extent, mentorship is that answer, right? It's like you say, the people that reach down and help pull you up, that agree with that mission or see where you're trying to go and say, yeah, someone took the moment or the time to help me when I had no idea what was going on or how the world ran. And if I want that to continue, I have to do the same for others.
Yeah.
I've experienced it firsthand with Founding Up, with Juice Consulting. Both of you as leaders, I think, do an incredible job of fostering community. Whenever there's an event going on that has anything to do with my interests, your team is reaching out to me, inviting me. Whenever you have something going on that you think I would find of interest or learn from or grow from, you're inviting me and including me in it. So it shows something about the leaders who are teaching their people how to foster community, and that is, think of somebody that might benefit from this and include them. And your people are doing that.
From a perspective of kind of put myself in her shoes, when you're just kind of a little bit lost, I would say as a mentor, the advice that I would say is it's okay. It's okay to be lost.
Yeah, exactly.
Get used to being lost, because life is this thing that unfolds over time. You don't have the answers. And a lot of times there is this expectation that I need to know the answers. I need to know what I'm going to study. I need to know all these things. And give yourself that grace and permission to be like, I don't know this, and that's okay. Because you do it, you just never know. Your experience itself will inform you how you can be that change, how that you can be that positive. So you'll be able to recognize those opportunities over time. So I'd say, just from if she's hearing the podcast, be patient. It'll come around, and it will. You'll identify that help that you can have, and it might be many things to get you down to that path. You might help here and help there, and then it'll eventually be something that's world changing.
And knowing that she has that spirit in her is actually a really good indication of a type of field that could be something where she helps others. There's so many, career opportunities that obviously offer assistance to the world around them, at large, where you're working in a service environment or a nonprofit or some sort of philanthropic effort. So there's a big opportunity there, just career-wise, to give back, and whether it's through that or personally, I think there's a lot of options.
And definitely ask the mentor if she's got a mentor, because she did say she's going through mentors. I think it's important to ask. If you remember Dan Graham in our last episode, he said that his mentorship was what he saw, or the benefit is that it was like he was at the level of a city or in a building, and then when the mentor was able to bring him up to the top of a mountain to kind of see a much bigger picture. And I think by just expressing I want to do this and just asking various mentors will be you'll have some answers
and some perspective.
The 1,000-mile zoom out view.
Really cool. All right, let's jump into this next video. Trevor, let's see what he's got to say.
So, what are you struggling the most with right now?
Just kind of figuring out how to balance relationships with school and with other things. I can talk to the person who sits next to me in my chemistry class, right? That doesn't really mean we're friends. I don't know his name. I've talked to this guy for the last 3 months, never asked his name. We've never seen each other outside of class, or if we do, we act like we didn't. I mean, there's no emotional connection between the two of us other than, hey, that's the guy who sits next to me in chemistry, right? Just on a random tangent, the media has absolutely destroyed our portrayal of what we see as friends and stuff. Whenever you see the portrayal of college, it's always, they're always out at parties, they're always out doing stuff, right? And they're very, very social. Then you make it there, and it is not social at all. Most of your social interaction comes from asking the people in your group to do the part of the project they haven't done yet, right?
That was great. That was great.
That is so funny.
that was great, and it also just
Mm.
um, it's really neat to see that perspective because you don't think that. I mean, everybody sees the opportunity in front of everybody is just what they make of it sometimes, and so that he's looking at this. Uh, I would call it like a Disney fairy tale of what actually happens when he's looking at college, and like, well, what's wrong is that's not happening for me. I'm not experiencing that.
It's hard to foster community, make friends. It's scary to put yourself out there, especially at that age.
Yeah.
And also, I think we're living in a very different time, being that so much is virtual these
Yeah.
days. I mean, if you take that in a college environment, you could apply it easily to a work environment. So it's almost like we have to learn to interact differently and create our own, social environments and groups and really put yourself out there. I mean, they still exist. There's still plenty of things going on, but how do you find them, and how do you just kind of work through your fears about injecting yourself into a social environment?
I thought that was it kind of took me back to a much younger age. Like some of these networking events way when I was, years and years ago. It is this kind of intimidation. There's all these people like, what do I say? What do I do? Who am I? There's these, at least for me, there was that kind of intimidation. And then you understand that everybody's feeling the same way.
That's right.
And so I would say, my thought is just, the guy sitting next to you, take that first step. Now my rule is I just take that first step. It's like, I feel like, if there's this quiet, I just want to know who this person is next to me and kind of ask questions and that kind of thing. You can always ask, a question and without, and kind of lead that conversation just more, tell me more about you, tell me more of your family, just kind of be really personally interested in the person they will open up typically. So that's kind of my go-to.
And you're also not going to get along with everyone.
Right.
You'll have your natural attraction to certain people. There's always that energy you feel when you meet somebody you really like and you want to be friends with. So I think there's that too. It's like just trying to open yourself up to find those connections. I have a funny little story though, and this is back to what you're saying about everybody feels that way. It's so true. But there was a band I was working with a couple of years ago who I've known for a while, some producers that formed this group called Watch the Duck. And it's kind of an interesting, fun play on words. But I asked them, what the heck does Watch the Duck mean? And one of the guys was like, well, it's basically about, you see a duck on the lake looking all smooth, looking all calm, and he's just, moving along. But underneath, he's paddling like this, but you can't see any of that, right? And so it's just kind of an idea that's how humanity is, and to just keep that in mind as you proceed in life. By the way, they got signed by Pharrell Williams.
Wow.
That band did. So they were working with him for a while. Amazing music.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Shout out to Watch the Duck. Anyway.
See, that's really interesting, right? Because, one of the things I picked up on he was talking about, he said social media has sort of destroyed this ability. And I think one of the problems with social media is it's all perfect. Right? Like it's like someone walks up to someone on the street and they just, oh, hey, right? And it looks as if they literally just walked up to somebody and they're both now having this effortless conversation, right? As if there wasn't a slew of production people stood off screen that got them down, got them to agree, signed this to still. There's a whole process, right? And then you're coached on what you're going to talk about. So it's like social media makes everything, look really smooth and natural. And it's sort of to Dan's point, right? There's actually an incredible amount of purpose. Things looking effortless take an incredible amount of effort. And if you don't have the life experience and perspective on things to realize that, which you don't when you're young, you just go, oh, that's how people talk to each other. And when I do it, it's really awkward and awful. And I don't know what to say. I must just be awkward and awful when no one wants to talk to me. Then you don't ask the person next to you your name. You can't even get to that point because you're like, I'm so bad at this. No one wants to talk to me. But as you said, everyone feels that way. And I think social media has it, again, it's like one of the largest experiments we ever did with our kids. You just said, hey, here's a lens through to the world where everything is perfect. I hope that doesn't skew your standards of beauty or social interaction or relationships. Have fun. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Well, and at the same time, there's also been an interesting introduction of imperfection that I've noticed too.
That's true.
There's been a
That's
big
more
embrace,
recent.
like the way the kids in my kids' lives, that they embrace all kinds of things that I think back when I was growing up were, looked at very differently. And I think that that's a beautiful part of it, on the
Mhm.
I do
flip
too.
side. But I think there's been a transition there of like, you kind of have all the extremes with social media,
Right.
But I do see a lot more acceptance, especially my daughter's, she's 12 and in her friend group. It's amazing to me, how beautifully just celebratory they are when they each do little social posts and they shout each other out and they now she's probably in a very lucky group of friends
Yeah.
and she found herself in that support system, but again, putting yourself out there I
Mhm.
think is the first step and taking that step.
And I would say to Trevor is just most of us fake it till we make it. We're just it
Yeah.
just is. It's like
And then you keep faking it.
you keep faking it. You keep faking it, and it's just until you really that confidence will come over time.
That's right.
It's never
Yeah.
there. It's like it is this growing. Growth is kind of painful. It's like uncomfortable, but that is growth. Life isn't comfortable, so nobody's going to just like come up magically. I want to be your friend and do all these things. You've got to put that effort and that intention. If that is something that he's missing, which is community, reach out. My secret is I just invite people to coffee.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, I'd love to have coffee, and because it's so non-threatening, it's just like, let's go grab a cup of coffee. I want to see what you're up to, what your projects are, what your interests are, and I have yet for someone to say no to that. So just make it low key. So I'd say to his friend, if he wants to meet his friend, is like, hey, let's go grab a cup of coffee or a beer. I don't want to get to know more about your major and what where you come from, all that kind of stuff, because I'm just trying to grow myself.
Yeah.
Just be open and humble and just be like out there and make
What did
that-
our moms always tell us? Be yourself.
Right.
Like it
Yeah.
boils back to try and be your true authentic self, even if you're still figuring out what that is,
Yeah.
who that is.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is being vulnerable is
Mhm.
always a way to connect with someone too. It's like, just imagine that person that you're thinking about may feel exactly the way you do. So
100%.
just the chance of opening up to them could spark something like a really meaningful friendship,
Mhm.
Yep.
Chances are they feel pretty similar to you most of the time.
Asking for help is another one.
Mhm.
So there's a problem I'm having with this. He was in chemistry. Um, we have time for to
Mhm.
help me with that, and that is that vulnerability you're talking about.
Mhm.
So anyway, hopefully that works. Trevor's back to us. Let's see. Let's jump to Matthew now. Let's see
Ooh,
what-
Matthew.
Matthew.
Are you nervous at all about having to reskill after you graduate?
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility, especially with like changing needs, especially like because of AI and stuff like that. But I'm prepared to. I'm expecting to, I guess, like have to like gather a few more skills. That's probably what I'm gonna have to do actually.
Well, that's interesting.
You were talking about it right before the podcast.
Yeah.
It's something we're always going to have to face.
I have to reskill almost every 3 months. I mean, right now, like in our agency business, there's so much going on in the digital world and, just change after change or innovation after innovation. So constantly having to relearn things.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's just a part of it.
Gone are the days when he was just manufacturing. You do the same job for the next 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's like things are moving so fast now that it's like you've got to be able to have that mentality, and I'm glad that he was open minded to that, and that's a big ask for if you start thinking about I'm going to try to pick my major, and there's all this pressure because there's this expense that goes along with that, and
It's a bit bigger than that though, right? And we have touched on this before. The whole concept of university says you're going to have one career. You should front load all of your education of that career to the beginning because it's more efficient and you're more hireable, right? And in reality, I was told that as a millennial by my parents and then sort of broader society, but Gen Z have sort of watched what happened to millennials,
Yeah.
and they have learned some lessons, and they're like, I don't think that's true at all. I
Yeah.
think I'm gonna have to reskill. I think I'll go to uni, but I'm gonna have to keep
Oh, yeah.
learning, and that's a huge. Again, like they're very Gen Z are watching. They're tuned in. They're learning life lessons really early, honestly, compared to others, right? And it's a shift. It's a complete generational mentality shift, which you just don't see in a lot of boomers or Gen X or whatever, right? Millennials as well.
Yeah.
And so it's, I don't know, I see that piece, right? Where they're looking at what the world looks like now and they're saying it's not I was 18-year-old. My dad told me something. I'm like, okay. Like, they're like, no, that's not true.
Right.
And it's this huge societal shift, I think. And they're seeing and watching that and learning, I think, things that even I don't notice.
They're comfortable with pushing back for sure.
Question things,
Mhm.
and there's so much more information at fingertips, and like, you're telling me this, but I just learned this over here. So they've got this other frame of reference,
True.
and on top of that, then there's all there's the gig economy is what they grew up in, right? So it's no longer that 40 to 60 hour job. I'm going to go
Yeah.
get that, land that, and do that. I'm going to go and do these side hustles until I kind of figure out what I want to do. So it is completely different. So the mentality is more open. It's more about being a hunter and figuring out what you want to do versus like being given that fish. That's like, here's, I'm going to go get this job and they're just going to provide for me. And instead of that, it's more like I'm going to do it myself. So I really love the attitude. I say keep that attitude up, because that's an entrepreneur spirit. That's what an entrepreneur is like, always thinking about, what do I need to do to improve to get to the next level.
And a lot of times people get a major and then they end up getting some other job opportunity that comes along and, may completely step out of what they learned in school. So there's the other, pivot opportunity. I hire people all the time that don't have PR majors. I mean, I hire based on personality. So if I see somebody literally at an event and they're just like this effervescent bubble of energy good with people and has a good laugh or something, I'm like, hey, I like you. Let's talk.
Right.
Let's go have coffee. But that's how I hire people
Right.
most of the time. And then I train them up in their positions. And that's how we've built the team at Juice. So I have a couple people with PR backgrounds, but most of them, they're just based on it's complete gut feeling and instinct and personality.
We've talked about that. We've talked about a lot of the training being done on the job now versus coming directly from uni and having that degree and saying, I'm going to do that. I think that we looked at some of the percentages. It's only like 75% and I'm not sure if that's super accurate. It was pretty close.
70% of degrees end up being non-vocational, so that the people that get those degrees don't go into jobs after that. Their degree what helps for.
Right. So of the 100%, only 30% actually go and do that.
Right.
So the big majority are doing other things. So it's important to have that mentality and kind of look at other things. Be open to growth.
Yeah, be open. I mean, I had that happen in my career where I
You had a
studied
huge shift.
it was like totally pivot after pivot after pivot. It started in PR and majored in PR and, started my career in that area. And then a job opportunity came up that pulled me into the marketing side of things. And I had to kind of relearn because marketing and PR are very different. They're very, synergetic, but quite different. I had to just do on the job training. And then that led me to something else. And before you knew it, I was actually a director of marketing within just a few years of graduating college and with a PR degree. And so, and then that led me to the music industry even further. And I got a job working as an artist management representative. Never knew a thing about artist management, but they wanted to have the global marketing experience I had. Then I learned how to manage an artist. And then I learned all about how a record label worked and just product management. And then it was like one thing led to another. But, some of the best jobs are when you're thrown in on the deep end and have to learn to sink or swim. And just those are the most exciting opportunities, in my opinion, because you can find yourself in some very, interesting situations.
Well, and you're an entrepreneur. I mean, you're a business owner, entrepreneur, look at various things. And that's what I learned in all the interviews of entrepreneurs is like there's this excitement about building and about not asking permission. Just like, I'm going to go do this thing. I see a problem. I'm going to go, I don't have to have permission to go do this. I'm just going to figure it out and make it happen.
Yeah.
And having that skill is incredibly valuable, especially as we talk about AI. We talk about how AI is doing all the jobs that are going to be doing all the jobs that we no longer have to do. So there's got to be this creativity, this ability to be flexible. And so we're moving to more of a creative economy versus like typing and doing all this just mundane things that AI can do.
Clerical stuff is going
Clerical
to be
stuff,
more automated.
like writing, a lot of things that, I mean, there's so much that's going to be impacted. But one thing that, as Leon points out in one of the lectures he gave, AI cannot do is creativity. And so being able to think like the entrepreneur, being creative is where things going.
It's an innovation economy. We are moving.
Mm-hmm.
We were in a knowledge economy. We're moving into an innovation economy. You know, that's the bit the AI isn't good at. You can ask it for 10 innovative ideas, and some will be absolute garbage. Some are clearly products that already exist.
Yeah.
Some of them might be good, and it's on you to recognize that or not. And that's the human value, right? That the AIs just don't. That the AIs just don't replicate well. And I think that's the key is, right, understand the technology and understand where it's strong and understand where it's weak. And if you understand where it's weak, that's where you want to position yourself, right? No one out there is trying to plow the ground with their hands. No one out there is trying to paint things quicker than a printer will print, right? Don't try to fight. No one out there is the blacksmith went away because it turns out pressing sheet steel with a machine is far faster than hammering it out on an anvil. Don't try to compete with technology on its strengths. Go to where it's weak, because that's where there'll always be a market for people.
Yeah. And it can make us so much more efficient. I think that's the main thing, is realizing that there's no stopping this right now. We have to kind of figure out how to integrate it in our lives. But more and more, I'm feeling excited about it, because I think it is going to make us all maybe free up some time in our lives to do the things that really excite us and inspire us, and where we can use our minds in other ways, back to the creativity.
Right. That's the fun bit, right?
Yeah. Right.
Makes you wonder about, is the Renaissance coming back? We have more time on our hands to do more creative things, artistic things.
It must be.
That's a great point.
All right. Let's move on to.
Are y'all afraid of reskilling or retraining after you graduate?
I think I am. Many of the technical skills that we learned or might be learning in the future aren't really future proof. And I think one of the reasons that engineers might be scared of, or have a reason to be scared of AI, is because the way they're training them is really similar to a human brain. I mean, they don't call them neural nets for no reason. Their weights and biases are based almost exactly of how a neuron learns. And I think what I'm really afraid of is that if I can learn something, an AI might be able to learn it in the same way and do the same things that I might be able to do. Maybe in the future you might not be able to distinguish between an AI and me. So it might not just be reskilling, it might be competing with the same skills that something can master better than you.
Remember the part where we said it all looks perfect? That was a very hard task to get out on the campus and interview people. We just made it look perfect, right, Leon?
Yeah.
You did most of the work there, I think.
So thoughts. I mean, his fear is, will AI get us, will I be competing against AI? And obviously,
I think that goes back to what we were just talking about to some extent, right? We were / sort of still are in this knowledge economy where the promise is go to university, get a bunch of knowledge, and be employed for that knowledge. Here's a piece of paper that says you have that knowledge. It's an IOU for a grad job, right? One grad job, please, thank you. I know the maths, right? And you go in. But I think that's the trouble. At the surface, that's how it feels things get done. Like, people were talking about software engineers being useless and going away, and you'll only need half of them or something. And that hasn't really materialized, because I think a lot of people don't appreciate how much of software engineering isn't actually writing code. It's a lot of all this other stuff that the AIs don't really do. And maybe one day that changes. But, if you're a mathematician, it's like saying I'm afraid of calculators, because currently I'm the one that does all the math. And when they come and take the math from me, what will be left? And you're like, well, the field of mathematics is enormous and broad, right? And the person doing the math isn't, which was a thing, by the way. So they used to do the weather. They had a room full of women that did nothing all day but run on mechanical calculators. It's crazy. But the point, I know, right? So
women are the best.
And but yeah, so and so yeah, sure, that kind of goes away. But the point is, there are still mathematicians. And so it's like, yeah, you can take elements of jobs where, to your point, is you automate them and speed things up, and everything gets faster and tighter and quicker, and you can spend more time having fun, being creative, adding value in that really uniquely human way.
I mean, ultimately, it's what we want, right? We want more life-work balance. We want to have ease in what we do, efficiencies in what we do. So it's kind of interesting to look at the state of the world right now and where it is going. I think about it in terms of my kids, 12 and 14 years old. I remember when I was that age, the way the world was back then. It was like the era of Stranger Things,
Mhm.
and riding my bike for miles and miles,
Right.
and I had one computer in my entire school in the 8th grade. One computer. I remember when I got my first email. I'm sure you guys do too.
Mhm. Mhm.
It was like unbelievable moment in my life, freshman year of college. So, but bottom line is like, what is the world going to be like for them when they're 50 years old?
Right.
What is this going to be like? I cannot even conceive of it.
Right. Mhm.
So we're just it's like the human experience, but here we are in 2024, and wow, it's mind blowing. All the even architecture. Do you ever look around, like besides the cyber trucks that are driving around, and the fact that we're about to start getting flying cars here in Austin and all those
Right.
things? It's like, yeah, we are in 2024. It's exact kind of what I thought it would look like in a
Mhm.
way,
Mhm. Except for
Anyway.
that flying hoverboard, we don't have that yet.
Yeah,
It's coming.
we're working on it.
But I would say to any fear with regard to the AI taking my job is one thing I've learned is make yourself indispensable.
Mhm.
And you do that by leaning into your strengths, which are for me, creative, um, or reliability, or offering ideas that maybe the rest of your team hadn't thought of. And that's where you could kind of lean into AI if you know the right questions to ask.
Mhm.
Leon's training me how to, build GPTs and stuff like that. But really, it's leaning into what you have to offer and what your perspective is, because that's what makes things more interesting than anything.
Yeah, I think that every one of us has a gift. I mean, I always like the analogy of we're all stardust. We came from the star at some point, and so there's something special inside us. It's our job to figure this out as our identity, and it takes years. And it's not always like I have the answer, but there is something that you can contribute. There's a reason you're here, and so if you just have that mentality and positivity and lean into it, as you point out, then you don't have that fear. Just kind of put myself in his shoes, and he's like, well, these things are learning the way we are. They still don't have they still don't have the spark. Someone has to input,
Yeah.
make that request. They're not thinking on their own, asking their own. They're just someone's creating, and they're a tool. So to your point with the calculator, or you said, chainsaw or whatever that
Right.
tool is, it is a tool, and the better you learn to wield it, if that's what you want to do, the more output you can
And just
use.
embracing that change will put you ahead as well. Like, yeah, there's always something fearful
right.
about change. There always is. There's a status quo, and for the people that are enjoying that status quo, changes, can be very scary, right? But the only way, the people who always get ahead are the ones that embrace those tools and were there ready to show how they, I'm sure you've seen this, right? In the people that came up with crazy new ways to use AIs to do really good stuff, those are the people you want to talk to right now. And the people bar humbugging it and refusing to use it, they're the people you probably don't work with as much.
You got to just realize that's the reality of it. But I think that there's going to be things that come out of this that we never even conceived of. New industries that'll be created, new career paths. I mean, maybe things will shift from what you're studying in college right now to what you'll be doing 20 years from now. But that's the way of the world. So we're about to take the new frontier on with outer space. I was just at NASA. Blew my mind about what's going on there. Like, in 20 years, things are going to be very
Right.
different for all of us
Right.
in humanity, period. So I think going back to what we discussed earlier is just the ability to be adaptable and to pivot and know that things are not going to always stay the same.
Yeah.
So get those skill sets, but know that you're going to get more.
Well, to your point, I mean, Elon's throwing a new rocket very frequently. I'm not sure what number he's at, but essentially, that's all not in vain. I mean, there's some bigger plan going there. So to your point, I mean, there's just a whole lot of opportunity in the future. I mean, you're a rocket scientist. What's going to happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I
Here
mean,
with one.
it's a complete shift in the way the whole industry works. There's something like more launches in 2022 than there were, for decades before it, kind of thing. So yeah, the world is changing very quickly, and it's only getting faster. And that's a good thing, I think, because all of the boring bits you can automate away, hopefully. And I suppose my one thing was I was promised the Jetsons. I was promised flying cars and automation and robots that were going to do my housework and all these sorts of things. And the only weird thing is, for all of the automation that came into the world, I do work longer hours
Yeah.
What's that about, right? Like, it was an 8-hour workday apparently in the 1950s, but today, like, we all acknowledge that's probably more like 10 and a few hours on the weekend, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what happened there, man? We were supposed, like, they keep automating more and more things, and I end up working more and more hours, you know? You know, like, okay, I'm a co-founder, that's a bit different thing, but even when I was just like in a normal 9 to 5, right? It was never 9 to 5. Like, what happened there? It's like you took 2 people's job, made it 1.5 people's job, and then gave me the other half.
Mm-hmm.
To your point earlier, though, I think that like because Gen Z is aware of that and they're much more balanced-minded oriented, they've
Sure.
kind of
Yeah.
seen the generations before kind of
Yeah.
work and then retire and then die.
That's
So they're like,
right.
we don't want that.
But they're not
Yeah.
getting 401ks, so
That's
what are
right.
they even? It's the
Exactly.
gig economy, man. They don't
Ex-
even get a pension.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
and there's some sort of I think about generations a lot, and you know, having a 20-year-old who's a Gen Z, and I try to look at the world through her eyes and kind of our discussions, and there's some sort of comfort in knowing that, all right, generations before us did all these things, and now we're getting all the news on what has happened. How do we fix it? And there's this kind of, you know, camaraderie around, like, we don't have the best hand that's given to us, but we got to do something about it. And I do like that aspect of this. Hope is we got to do something, and we'll figure it
That's
out.
a shame as well, because, man, Gen Z have a great time. Oh my God. The kids that came to my Rocket Lab, and the kids that came to UT and enrolled had CVs that, like, just intimidated me. Like,
true.
man, I would never have gotten in here. Not a chance in hell. Like, your CV is amazing, right? And all this opportunity you've had and all these great things. And I think about, I was like, man, my CV looked terrible. I had, like, work experience at, like, a crap restaurant. That was it, you know, like, hire me, I
more and more
washed
competitive.
dishes. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, and they're like, hire me, I went to NASA, right? I did it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got a much younger sister, and she's like going to ESA, the European Space Agency. And that's just, apparently that's just, she's like, I don't know, it's not that impressive. And I'm like, oh my God, I would have literally killed someone to have gone to ESA as a 15-year-old. I don't know. So they're in the best possible place.
Yeah.
But they don't feel, I agree with you, they don't feel like it though. And that's, I wonder what we did or how we did that.
I know someone who is incredibly intelligent and has a great CV, tons of cool internships, and didn't get into one college they applied to. So there's also universities that aren't really paying attention to this shift in how humans are changing and not acknowledging how great that stuff is at some point. And this isn't me being biased toward the person. I'm looking at the CV and wondering, how did you not get into any school?
I find that sometimes, I mean, I don't know what that answer is, but the way I would look at that or look at things now is like, well, all right, something else. There's another door about to open.
True.
And just kind of go with that because it's happened. I've been here 50 years and I've seen that happen over and over and over again. So I would just kind of be hopeful.
Gap year.
It's right. Well, I think that's all we have time for today. Thank you, Heather, for being with us. We didn't even talk about Beyonce.
Oh,
We have to
well.
talk
You should
about
slip
that
it in. You should slip
We'll
the
slip
story
something
in.
I can say
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. How did you go from being a director of marketing
Yeah.
to then working for Queen Bee, Beyonce?
Yes. Okay, I'll answer that.
Okay.
So I was very, very committed to the music industry, and I'd moved abroad for 5.5 years. I lived in the Netherlands and a little bit of time in France. And in that period of time, I really committed to it, and I ended up getting a great job with Universal Music. Long story about how all that happened, but I then learned how to do global marketing for the label and worked in a variety of countries around the world and setting up records, right? And that was also a marketing job, product management type of job, or a marketing manager job. Basically, I was at a conference in Atlanta, and I happened to be sitting next to someone who worked for Matthew Knowles, who was a keynote speaker. And this gentleman was just the most wonderful, warm personality. I call him Uncle Ira. I talked about him on the last podcast we were on. But anyway, he just said, he started to get to know me. And here's how somebody gave me a chance. There's I was talking about earlier, he opened a door for me. He was like, Matthew would love your international experience. We're managing this girls group called Destiny's Child. And I'm like, what? Because they were number one around the world at that point. But so humble, like, do you know them? And I'm like, yeah, I work for Universal Music. Like, what? And fast forward, he introduced me to Matthew. Matthew hired me, moved me from the Netherlands to Houston in 2002 to come work for the family. I came with just, a really big open heart for the opportunity because Solange was on the label. She was 16 at the time, Destiny's Child, but I had no idea what I'd be doing specifically. And then once I got there, he ended up eventually promoting me to work with Beyonce as she started her solo career and just taught me everything I knew about artist management. And I was doing marketing, artist management, global coordinating of the brand for Beyonce, and was involved with every aspect of her career at that point. So for about 5 years. And
Wow.
it was
Wow.
life-changing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about a door opening. And so that was a big pivot for me because now I started my company 17 years ago. And I have to say that everything we do was based on that collective experience I had
Wow.
before.
Mhm.
And I often think about writing a book about how much I learned
Right.
from the Knolls because I did. I learned so much. And I share that with our clients. I share that with my students. And it's great knowledge to share. You know, it's
But I
the
heard,
best of the best, honestly. So
but I heard two things as a mentor that maybe a mentee can take away from that is like, one, you said yes, and you're open to like moving and doing all the
oh
things that
yeah,
need to happen,
moved. Yeah.
right? But two is the guy was sitting next to you, and it would have never happened if you didn't start a
That's right.
conversation or there's no
Yes.
conversation going. So
Yeah.
conversations are
Yeah.
important. It's not just the person doesn't want to talk to me, I don't want to talk to him. It's like you just never know who's sitting next to you.
Yeah.
So
It
anyway,
changed my life, that's for sure.
That's amazing. So
on that note, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
thank you, Heather.
Such a pleasure.
That wraps up another episode of Uncharted, your sidekick for life. We hope you enjoyed today's discussion on the power of pivoting throughout your career. A huge thank you to our incredible guest, Heather Wagner Reed, for sharing her journey and expertise. We also want to thank our Gen Z contributors, Kiera, Trevor, Matthew, and Samarth, for sharing their thoughts and personal experiences. Your voices are essential in these conversations, and we appreciate your openness and honesty. Whether you're navigating your college years, your early career, or any life transition, mentorship can be a powerful tool to guide and support you. And on Uncharted, we're here to help you get answers to your questions. Stay connected with us for more episodes filled with inspiring stories and practical advice. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out through our website, foundingup.com/uncharted_podcast. Thanks for tuning in. If you have 2 minutes, please leave a review for us on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends about the show. They can find us wherever you're listening now. Until next time, stay curious and keep charting your own course with Uncharted, your Sidekick for Life podcast.